Good morning. I was suspecting someone would say good morning back,
morning.
and I'm just, I know it's early yet, but we're here with great colleagues in government and great advocates who are working on behalf of tenants. And so very, very, very excited to be here for this legislative announcement. Honored to be joined by State Senator Kavanagh, Assemblymember Micah, Lasher, all the great work that they do across so many issues, but today to focus on housing and protecting tenants. And then the folks who are every single day doing the work out there, engaging directly with tenants and supporting them. Got at Riverside, where I was earlier this week, Tenants and Neighbors, and Association for Neighborhood and Housing Development. Thank you so much for being here, and equally important, all the work you're doing every single day. It should go without saying, but we really want to underscore it today. And the housing affordability crisis in New York City is a public safety issue. It exacerbates power asymmetries between landlords and tenants, and in various parts of our practice where substantial power asymmetries exist, criminal activity often follows, with people targeting vulnerable populations for profit. This issue in particular is deeply personal to me. My father ran homeless shelters, and visiting him at work and out in our communities when he was interacting with his clients, I saw the impacts of our affordable housing crisis on his clients, and that left a deep impression on me and informs our work here, centering tenants and ferreting out fraud that increases and exacerbates our affordable housing crisis. While most landlords follow the rules in New York, as New Yorkers, we've all heard horror stories of extreme forms of tenant harassment, especially against rent-regulated tenants. By making conditions unlivable, bad actors hope that rent-regulated tenants will just pack up and go. We've seen that in our docket. This type of conduct has unfortunately become the status quo for some, and we cannot continue to accept that as just a fact of living in New York City. And this new bill is really laser focused on this issue. It would create new criminal penalties for systematic harassment of rent-regulated tenants and penalize repeated recidivist harassment. Specifically, the legislation would create a new Class D felony, aggravated harassment of a rent-regulated tenant, which would address systemic harassment across multiple buildings and would elevate penalties for those previously convicted of harassment of a rent-regulated tenant in the first degree. And here at the Manhattan DA's office, we are seeing this in our work. I want to salute our leadership, Chike and Hope, who are doing this and overseeing the docket. Had a case in court this morning. And specifically as to tenant harassment, just a couple of weeks ago, we announced a case in Chelsea where we alleged that landlords were targeting older tenants, trying to harass them out of a building for decades, alleging no heat, persistent leaks, and no elevator access for tenants, the victims, who were quite old. We also brought a case last year against landlord Daniel Ohepshalom and his companies, alleging harassment, again, of rent-regulated tenants, and they are across 5 buildings, and alleging that he did that for significant profit. This type of alleged conduct is not just shameful, it is also criminal, which is why we have the Housing and Tenant Protection Unit and why, sadly, they've been so busy lately. And we need more tools. We need more tools to hold bad actors accountable. While there are laws on the books and that we're using them every day, here we are informed by that practice and seek greater accountability, which we hope will lead to deterrence. We are equipped to do the work, but we want to have a chilling effect and prevent the fraud and harassment from happening in the first place. So let me talk a little more specifically about the bill. Right now, if a landlord harasses at least 2 tenants in any building, it is a Class E felony. If that same landlord were to harass 10 tenants across 10 buildings, it would still be a Class E felony. So we need graded sanctions for graded and elevated conduct. And that's why under our legislation, landlords who engage in, quote, a systematic ongoing course of conduct across multiple properties could be charged with this new Class D felony, aggravated harassment of a rent-regulated tenant. And this reflects the reality of what we're seeing on the ground, of how tenant harassment is often occurring, not just in one isolated building, but done across multiple buildings, often in multiple neighborhoods. This new enhanced penalty would get us as prosecutors the ability to get relief for many more tenants under duress, while at the same time getting accountability, heightened accountability for unscrupulous individuals engaging in this conduct. In addition, the second component of the law, the recidivist piece, would allow us to charge this new D felony if defendants have previously been convicted of the E felony, harassment of a rent-regulated tenant in the first degree, and then repeats the same behavior. There's real urgency for this legislation, and I want to thank all of our partners, our legislative partners who will formally introduce the bill and will help push this in Albany. I'm just really humbled by the work they do and standing side by side with them. And then our advocates who are on the ground every day doing the work. We owe this to you to get you additional tools, additional penalty to deter this conduct so it will not happen. And I'll remind folks in closing about the work of our Housing and Tenant Protection Unit. We're here every day. Sadly, we are extremely active, and the conduct spans the spectrum from tenant harassment to deed theft, which case we announced last week, to just in court this morning, someone posing as having the authority to be a broker for a rental property. And I would just say that anyone who has knowledge of this kind of conduct or has been the victim of it, I would encourage you to reach out to us and call us at our hotline, 212-335-3300. I now want to turn it over to our great senator. I believe we're in your district as we speak right now, Senator Kavanagh. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the DA. Thank you to everyone assembled here, and including my wonderful colleague, Micah Lasher, the Assembly sponsor of this bill. And the DA mentioned the groups that are here today, and we really do work in partnership with so many organizations that work on the ground to make sure tenants' rights are protected, and also work with us to make sure we have the right legislation in place. I want to take, sort of hometown privilege and particularly call out Goals, which is here, which is the good old Lower East Side, headquartered right around from my neighborhood. So we have been working systematically for many years now to establish a really basic principle, which is that if you are a tenant in a city, you're paying your rent and doing what you're supposed to do, you have a right to peacefully enjoy your home with your family in your community without threat of being displaced. And that is, if you think about what it means to live in a city, what it means to live in a community, one of the most basic things. We know we have a housing crisis. We know if you lose your home, being displaced can mean moving to a whole other part of the city. It can mean pulling your kids out of school. It can mean losing access to local services like healthcare. So anti-displacement and housing stability has been a fundamental part of our right. Unfortunately, before 2019, when we passed the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act, displacing tenants legally was common practice and acceptable. You didn't have to engage in the kind of terrible behavior that the DA is talking about today, harassing your tenants, because the laws had been weakened and loopholes had been inserted and people could be displaced. And we know 300,000 rent-regulated units were lost during that period. And that was many, many cases, that was a tenant being pushed out so somebody could double or triple the rent. So we have taken steps over the last 6 years to eliminate all those loopholes, to eliminate the legal mechanisms to remove someone against their will. HSTPA closed the loopholes, eliminated deregulation, eliminated these provisions that would allow you to raise the rent 20, 40, 60% in a single year. We subsequently closed a loophole that allowed landlords to combine apartments and reset the rent from scratch, again, often inducing them to try to displace tenants. So we've done a lot of work. We've set the legal rights in place for people to stay in their apartments. Unfortunately, And as the DA said, most landlords are following the law. They're doing the right thing. Being a landlord's a hard job. We work with them when we can to make that job easier and to get them the resource they need to maintain their buildings. But unfortunately, there are landlords in this city that often systematically go after their tenants and try to push them out of their homes and often use grotesque and illegal means. So it is great to have a partner. The DA has been a partner on so many issues here in Manhattan, keeping us safe, bringing about justice, finding new solutions to our problems, and of course, prosecuting people when necessary. But it's particularly welcome when our prosecutors realize there are gaps in the law that prevent them from doing their job most effectively, and they come to us and say, let's change the law so we have the right tools. That's what we're doing today. We're going to give this District Attorney Alvin Bragg and all of the prosecutors in this city the tools necessary to address this and hopefully end this kind of harassment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. And it has been great partnering with you and your office across so many issues. And I'm glad you mentioned the 2019 bill because this is the process, right? The iterative process where under your great leadership and your colleagues passing the bill initially, then we use it for some time and we'd say, hey, can we tweak it in this way? So it's a great partnership in government. I want to turn now to Assemblymember Micah Lasher from the Upper West Side, who has been a colleague in government and worked on these issues. We've worked on them together at the Attorney General's office. So glad that he's able to join us and thank him for his leadership as well.
Thank you. Thank you, District Attorney Bragg. Thank you, Senator Kavanagh. These are great friends and partners in government, and we've worked together. I think District Attorney Bragg and I worked together on one of the first criminal prosecutions of a landlord who engaged in tenant harassment, which was Steve Croman, who had actually been my first landlord when I graduated from college, who I sued in small claims court to get our security deposit returned. And coming full circle, Senator Kavanagh and I passed legislation in this last session to establish basic rules and protections for rent-stabilized tenants when it comes to security deposits. So all of these things do tend to come full circle. And I'm very grateful to my constituents, Jane Clark from the Westgate Tenants Association, Pat Loffman from the Park West Village Tenants Association, and Larry Wood from Goddard Riverside, which is an extraordinary institution, and to all of the other activists and advocates and tenants and tenant leaders here. I'm very grateful to you for being here. The District Attorney and the Senator have really really covered the territory on what we're trying to do here today. It is a basic act to make sure that our laws provide the protections that tenants are entitled to. And the notion that a tenant should not be harassed out of their home is well established in the law. What we are doing is addressing a significant loophole, which is that presently scale is a shield. And it should not be the case that a landlord can escape appropriate legal action simply by harassing tenants in multiple buildings. That is entirely the opposite of what good law should, with the kind of behavior and conduct that good law should drive. Just this year, my office has connected more than 75 individual constituents with legal assistance, the vast majority of which were involved in systemic harassment and landlord-tenant issues. Many of my colleagues in the legislature and the city council, Senator Kavanagh, see these cases every single day. When we and the legal services community, and in extreme cases, the district attorney, are taking action to try to address this. But the district attorney needs strong legal and statutory tools. And right now, he is working with a law that has a big gap. And so with this change in law, which we hope to pass this session, will provide accountability for the worst actors in our system. We will deter misconduct, and we will ensure that tenants have the protection of the law that they deserve. And I hope and expect that we will pass this bill in the coming session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Assemblymember Lasher. It's great to have great colleagues in government. You brought up the 2019 amendment, and you brought up the Croman case, which are really our scaffolding around this. And as much as I enjoy working with them, we really want to hear next from someone who is doing this work every day at Tenants and Neighbors, Aurora Mejia.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today here. And I'm here with Tenants and Neighbors. I'm the Director of Organizing. And what I had to say is that this is a day to celebrate for tenants. For years, tenants have been suffering from harassment in different ways. And what we see in the ground when we're doing outreach, when we're trying to form tenant associations and organizing, is tenants suffering because lack of services. Because they're being taken to housing court for non-payment cases, but they've been paying their rent. For doing construction or demolishing their apartments, just using this as a tactic to push tenants out. And this is something that we see every day. We get calls also from tenants saying that they're being harassed, they're being charged late fees and other fees just to push them out. They also suffer from verbal harassment, and sometimes it's a physical harassment that they suffer, and we need to stop that. So I'm very grateful for this passing today. So thank you so much, District Attorney, for this and for passing this bill. We're excited, and we're going to continue doing our work in the ground, but knowing that we have tools to work and protections for tenants. Thank you so much.